say thank you. You rock my day. I have a very special place for you in my heart. Don't say my heart is too small. I have a very big heart. I can accommodate you. Yeah. So once again, thank you. And I want to appreciate the man of God of this sanctuary for giving us this place. He's so special. He's a man filled with anointing. He's a very rugged man. His corrosive and undiluted word of God that he gives to us here keeps us going. I call him ADK. Atomic, decisive, destructive knockout. Yeah, but don't say, yeah, ADK means Apostle Dominion King. Yeah, so he's a special man of God. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for giving us this wonderful auditorium, today, because if we had gone out to look for a place like this, we know what it will cost, with times like this. And I know some of us, we just came here, and probably some of us, we already own house. So before we get to the nitty-gritty of today, I would like to answer some, not really answer, but probably say your mind. Like, Kingsley is inviting me. I already bought my first house. Why is he still inviting me here? Or some of us know, oh, Kingsley knows that my credit is bad. How can I afford a house? Or, with the minimum wage I'm earning, how do I still afford a house? These are questions we want to break down today. I promise you we're going to knock these questions. We're going to answer them in every way. But let me assure you, I know you already own your first house. But you ask the question, why are you still here? Owning a first house is not the word first house. Why term that word first house? It doesn't mean your literal first house. I'm trying to tell you your first time of getting free from that financial liability. Some people own houses. They are still struggling. Instead of the house becoming an asset, it's becoming a liability. It becomes a problem. You ask yourself, why did I get this first house? Because why? You did not understand the process. The process is what matters. Apostle said just now that knowledge is power. When we have that knowledge, then we can do. What is power? Is that invisible thing in you that tells you can do it. It keeps you that no matter what I can go through. That is knowledge. So when you have that knowledge, you find out that all these things is gone. The fear is out of the way. But when you put the fear inside and you let fear sit on the driver's side, it drives you nowhere, to no destination. So you have to bring out that courage and say, how do I get this courage? How do I feed myself with knowledge? Is by coming to an event like this, coming out like this. I'll tell you a short experience, like what knowledge can, how knowledge can impact. A friend of mine was sponsored into this country by his mom, and when he came, he was on the internet one day, and as a child, not as a child, as a teenager, he was on the internet one day, and he saw, oh, you can get qualified for a credit card. He got qualified, and he just applied, and he got qualified. So he kept the credit card in his pocket. He was going to school. One day he saw in the shop that you can pay with credit card. He just brought it out. He said, is this? And he swiped. He paid. The next time he said, this thing is, amazing. He kept swiping. Until they brought the bill one day. He was like, what is this? He didn't know. Right there, because he left it behind, his credit was destroyed. So until the mom found out one day and said, do you know what you're doing? He said, Mom, is it not credit? I thought because I was not in this country, now I came, all the credit, government is giving it back to me. So what is the knockout there? He did not understand the word credit. Credit card, credit, your credit score in this country, it doesn't mean the government is crediting you. It's a responsibility. They are testing you, how you can manage, your finances. That is what credit card is. It's not like a gift or money you can spend anyhow. It's how to, measure your responsibility on your finances. So these are the things we are here for today, to equip you, to encourage you, to tell you, to let you know what is going on. That, yes. So I have an expert here on mortgage. People don't know. People think like buying a house, is like going to Walmart or going to Costco. Some people still don't understand. It's a process. You cannot just go to Walmart, go and say, oh, I want to buy a house, then go to Walmart, just cash out and put it in your pocket. No. It's a process. So that's why I'm here with an expert that is in mortgage. I would like her to, want her to introduce herself very well, because if I say many things, it might be too much. So I'll welcome Megan Simmons to. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. Kingsley, thank you so much for the invite. I'm really looking forward to chatting with you guys today about mortgages. Like Kingsley said, I've titled it First Time Homebuyer's Guide to Mortgages, but really this is for everyone. If you've bought your first house, we just moved a week ago now, and if you've done the move, you know that it's absolute chaos. There are a million things flying about, and what you probably remember about the mortgage process is one or two things. So it really is a good refresher. I'm going to walk you through from a lender perspective what lenders are looking for when we are determining whether or not you qualify for a mortgage. If you already have a house, these same things apply. If you do not have a house and you are trying to purchase a house, this will be a really good guide for things that you can start to think of. What I always say is people are really eager to shop for their house. And so our realtors, Kingsley, is usually the first person you're contacting because you're super excited about going out and starting to look at these houses. And really, before you do that, you need what I call your license to shop, okay? And so you need to know how much can you afford? What types of houses are you looking at? What can you tell Kingsley is your budget? And so that's really what I'm here today, is to talk to you about how we determine what that budget is. So before I get into it, I want to introduce myself a little bit. So I do have a family back home. I have two little girls who are 2 and 4, and a golden retriever. If you guys know Harry Potter at all, he is Professor Lupin, or Professor Lupin. And I was licensed in 2021. Previous to that, I was in the corporate world. So I worked for Petro-Canada, which is an oil and gas company. And I was there for about 10 years, all over the place. I did marketing, distribution, sales, a little bit of everything. And then during my first maternity leave with my daughter, I decided that I wanted a little bit of a change. Wasn't feeling very connected to that role, to that lifestyle, to that company, and I really had an affinity for helping people. I love the finance side of things. Better? And so that's when I made the switch into mortgages. I did purchase my first house in 2017, and like I said, about a week ago now, we did recently move. So that change is very fresh in my mind about what people go through. Buying my first house, I was very lucky in that we had a mortgage broker who held our hand the entire way. And I really thought back to that experience of making this huge life change. You're taking on this new asset and being so thankful to have people in my corner who I could really trust while I was making this large investment. And so that's what I really strive for my clients, is to really make sure that they are in good hands and they feel that confidence as well. And then hindsight 2020, I always like to give a little bit of, if I could go back and do it again, what would I do? And we purchased, a small detached house in Georgetown. And really, if I could go back and do it again, knowing what I know now, I would have gone back and I would have purchased a condo or something a little bit smaller that we could have kept when we made that decision to upsize, and then rent it out. It really is a great way to build wealth through real estate. And a lot of people, like myself, you find out what you can qualify for, and you almost purchase to the max of that budget instead of taking that step back and really taking that bigger picture look at how can I build my wealth most effectively through real estate. So something to consider as well, and we can always have those discussions if that's what's a goal of yours, is to be a little bit more strategic and thoughtful when making that first purchase. And then finally, takeaway that I'd love for you to take away today is just in that same vein, your first home doesn't have to be your forever home. It really is that stepping stone to get you into that property. And a lot of the times, especially with the world today, you're not going to buy that perfect white picket fence house that a lot of us have dreamed of. We really want to start small and work our way up. So let's get into it. Does anybody know what a mortgage broker is? I'm gonna throw it out there. Get a little audience participation. Any thoughts?
I guess a mortgage broker is someone who find mortgage lenders and bring them all together.
Love that. Little bit of a matchmaking service, right?
Yes.
Awesome. So I love the way that you put that. It really is. So a few things to think about here. We're a little bit different than a bank. I do not work for one particular lender. I have access to a number of different lenders. In our brokerage, we have about 64 available to us. So there is quite a few. And so I work for a number of different lenders, and I work specifically for you. And so I get to look at your particular circumstances and say, who is the lender that is going to be the best fit for you? What it also means is that I work for you for free. There is no percentage, there is no fee that is added onto your mortgage. It is paid directly by the lender themselves. And so that is really great for you as well. You're getting the expertise, the service, the knowledge without any cost. And so if you are a first-time home buyers, you're really sitting in this awesome, unique position where your real estate commissions are free because they're being paid by the seller of the house, and your mortgage broker is being paid by the lender. Okay, so a lot of free services that are at your disposal, which is why I always really encourage people that if you are thinking of moving, if you're thinking of buying that house, never hesitate to reach out to us early in the process. If you have bruised credit, if you don't have that down payment saved, if you're still working on, what your income looks like, still reach out. The earlier in the process, the better. We can absolutely help create a plan to get you where you want to go faster. Okay, there's a lot of ways that I can help you tailor your strategy to get where you want to go. And so the earlier is better. A lot of people kind of say, well, I don't have the down payment saved yet. I don't want to reach out. I don't want to waste your time. It's never a waste of my time to make sure that we can get you to your goal quicker. Oops. Okay. There's also a very big distinction between pre-qualified and pre-approval. And so you're probably, if you've never been through the house process before, you're probably like, what is a pre-qualification? What is a pre-approval? And so when you come to me and I tell you what your budget is for a house, and we take that and we go to Kingsley and we say, okay, we can shop for a $500,000 house. That is a pre-qualification or a pre-approval. What we want to be really cognizant about is that there's a different value of a pre-qualification versus a pre-approval. And so depending on the expert that you're working with, you can get a pre-qualification that really is you telling me, oh, I make X number of income. I make $60,000 a year. And I have a car payment that's $300 a month. And I have a Visa card that has a $15,000 balance on it. Oh, and I have a student loan. Okay, great. I then tell you what you can be qualified for. I don't ask you for a single document to prove that. And so that's a pre-qualification. That is me taking your information and giving you a rough estimate of what you can afford. The problem with that is that lenders have very specific set of criteria around your income. So you may make $60,000, but is that $60,000 include a bonus or not? Include overtime or not? Is that $60,000 guaranteed hours? Or is that just what you made this year in your hourly and last year you made less? Is that what your T4 is, right? So there's all these different nuances. In addition, the same thing goes with our liabilities. Is your car payment biweekly or is it monthly? That's a huge difference. And so when we talk about pre-approvals, when you go through it with me, I am asking you for, it feels like, everything in the kitchen sink, right? Like I'm asking you for all of these documents because what I want to make sure of is that when you go to buy that house and you put that offer in, your lender is then going to say, yep, absolutely not a problem, we will lend to you. The last thing I want to do is tell you that you are qualified for a certain amount. You go out, you do all the work, you sign that agreement of purchase and sale. We go out to the lender to say, okay, please give us the loan. And they say, whoa, whoa, whoa. They don't actually make $60,000. They made $60,000 with bonus, and we can't use that bonus amount because they haven't been there for 2 years, okay? So making sure that that professional is doing their due diligence to really understand how much you can afford. So, types of documents that I'll ask you for. There is different types of documents depending on how you are employed. If you are salaried, then we will be looking at pay stubs, letter of employment, T4s for the last 2 years. If you're part-time, we're gonna then need an additional 2-year T4s to make sure that we have provable income over a long term. If you have variable income, so maybe you do landscaping, maybe you do construction and there's a lot of variability in it and you get laid off in the winters because there's not a lot of work. Then we also look at that similar to part-time work. We need that 2-year T4 to show your history. If you're laid off regularly, we can also use your T4E, which is your unemployment income, to help us qualify. And then we also have this subgenre of self-employed. And if you're self-employed, we need a couple of additional documents. So we'll need your T1 generals, we'll need a notice of assessment, which is your NOAs, your business financials potentially in certain circumstances, so we may need to actually see that balance sheet or that income statement or the money that's coming into your account. So it really depends how you are employed, but be ready for lots of documents to send in. And then the question that I get a lot of the time is, how much do I need for a down payment? So does anybody happen to know the down payment rules? They've changed recently, which makes it really tough to keep track of. Any thoughts? Anyone? Sure.
The first one is 5%.
Yep.
And 5% between 800 to 500.
Yeah, okay.
Then above that is about 20%.
You're really close. Really close. So the first 500,000 is 5%. Anything above 500,000 to 1.5 million, it used to be 1 million, they've extended to 1.5 million, is 10%. So for 500,000, 5% would be 25,000, and then let's say you're buying a $600,000 house, then we need 10% of another 100,000. Okay, and then that added to the 25,000, so we need 35,000 for a $600,000 house. Okay, and I love this little cheat sheet here. You can take a really quick look at it. If you're looking at minimum down payment column and you're thinking of a $700,000 house, that's 45,000. I also included 10%, 15%, and 20%. You're probably like, why did you pick those intervals? Anything less than 20% down, you do require to pay mortgage default insurance. That amount, the percentage of that mortgage default insurance changes at those intervals. And so every step, the percentage drops down a little bit. And so minimum down payment, then at 10% we see a little bit of a dip, 15% we see another dip, and then 20% is zero. So it gives you a good idea. And then, this is what is often missed, is we all are so focused on our down payment that we forget about what we call our closing costs. And so you're like, great, I've saved the $35,000, I'm ready to buy a house. And I say, oh, what about your closing costs? We need an additional 1.5 to 2% of your purchase price for your closing costs. And your closing costs are things like your home inspection. So especially in this environment, we have lots of time and lots of conditions for home inspections. We see appraisals. We need legal fees, so a lawyer does have to close your purchase. Property taxes, often missed, but a lot of the time the person you're purchasing the house from has already paid their property taxes, and so you owe them back the property taxes for the amount of time that you will be in that house. We also have our moving expenses. I just paid a mover, it's not fun. But it makes life a little bit easier, so making sure you include that. And then we also have our GST on our default insurance. So that default insurance that I spoke about, that is wrapped up into your mortgage, okay? But the GST is not, and that you are required to pay in cash at the time of closing. So really good rule of thumb, 1.2% of the purchase price for your closing costs. So you need to save your minimum down payment, closing costs, and then we always want that safety fund, right? We don't want that asset to feel like the liability. We want to make sure you have that cash set aside. All right, how do I increase my down payment? This is what everybody wants to know. How do I get to my goal quicker? And so there's a couple things. There really is no hack or shortcut when we're saving for a down payment, but there are ways that we can make our money work better for us. And there's a few things that I like to suggest to people. Not all of these will be options, but something to keep in mind. So there is always the option of gifted funds. Your parents or immediate family member can gift you a portion of or the entire down payment. Not everybody has this option, but if you do, something to consider. Cutting down on expenses. So taking a good hard look at your budget and reviewing those subscriptions that might automatically come out of your account that you don't necessarily see. Can you substitute things? Can you, do couponing or flip app for your groceries? And can you move those expenses over to savings? And so typical advice for a first-time home buyer is we walk through this process, and then as of the day that we talk, and I know what you can afford and what your mortgage payment's gonna look like, plus the property taxes on top of that. My goal for first-time home buyers is always to start living today like you have that mortgage. And moving forward, that's how much you're saving to get towards your down payment. Make those sacrifices now before you get that house. And then finally, use the government programs that are available to you. They are designed to help get first-time home buyers in the market quicker. So we have a first home savers account. It's an awesome blend between an RRSP and a TFSA. If you don't know what those are, our TFSA is tax-free growth while it's in your account. Your RRSP helps bring down your income or offset your income to get tax break or deferred taxes. And so that FHA account, First Home Savers account, is really an awesome blend of the two. If you are looking to save for your first home, I highly recommend opening that and starting to use that to save for your down payment. There's a couple other government programs as well that I think is really important to talk about. So we talked a little bit about that tax-free First Home Savers account. You can save up to $40,000 tax-free, which is amazing. We have a home buyer's plan in your RRSP, so you are able to use up to $35,000 of your RRSP tax-free. You do have to pay it back over 15 years though. So something to consider. Every year at tax time, there will be a small portion that you do have to pay back into your RRSPs. You do not have the same with your First Home Savers account. And then you have your first home buyer's land transfer tax refund as well. So we all have to pay land transfer tax, which is my least favorite column to show on your closing costs because it can be quite pricey. But as a first-time home buyer, you are eligible for a refund up to $4,000 per person. So it can be quite great. And then we also have our first home buyer's tax credit, the HBTC, so a non-refundable tax credit that does allow you to claim up to $10,000 on your tax returns. And it can be a tax credit of up to $1,500. Again, every dollar counts. And then finally, for first-time home buyers, which was introduced end of last year, is we have a new 30-year amortization. And that 30-year amortization previously was 25 years. By stretching it to 30 years, we're able to qualify first-time home buyers for more money, which is great. One thing to consider is that it does add an additional 5 years onto your loan, which means that you'll be paying an additional 5 years of interest. But again, the government is trying to enable first-time home buyers to get into the market and get into the market quicker. And so by doing the 30-year amortization, it allows us to qualify you for a little bit more money. I always like to talk about debts. Debts are, especially when we're talking about first-time home buyers, especially in the economy that we're talking about now, People have debts. A lot of people have debts. But we do have to consider your debts when we're talking about what we can qualify you for. And so my goal for my clients is always to make sure that we are putting them in a position where that asset feels like an asset. We do not want you to buy a house and then feel like you're underwater and you can't sustain it. I don't want you to be house poor. I want you to have that property that you really can feel confident that you can take care of. And so when I'm looking at qualification for people, we are looking at how much debt do you carry and how much you can qualify for. And so I've created 2 examples here to show you the difference that debt can make in your qualification. And so first we have that annual income, it's $100,000. It can be combined with 2 people, it can be 1 person, just the annual household income is $100,000. You got a $25,000 down payment, so a good chunk of cash. Your vehicle payment is $730 per month. Then we have $3,500 on a credit card balance. We have a $5,000 LOC as a line of credit, and then we have a $35,000 in student loans. And so roughly you'd be able to qualify for $320,000. But now if we look at the opposite and we've wiped out all that debt, there's no payment, there's no credit card balance because you pay it off monthly, there's no line of credit balance, and there's no student loan, your qualification goes up by over $100,000. And the biggest contributor to this is your vehicle payment. A vehicle payment can impact your qualification. $500 monthly payment impacts your qualification by $80,000, okay? So it's really impactful, and it's one of the biggest mistakes that I see first-time homebuyers make. They go to the dealership, and the dealership says, well, you can qualify to buy this awesome car. It's an $800 or $1,000 a month payment. And you say to yourself, well, I can carry that. I have a good paying job, don't have a ton of debt, and $1,000 I can make happen. But now step 2 is now you want to buy the house, and you have a $1,000 car payment, and now your qualification goes down by almost $100,000. So something to really keep in mind, especially if you're a first-time home buyer, or even if you already have a house and you're looking to upsize, your vehicle payment, although it doesn't feel like a stretch, can really impact the dollar amount that you can qualify for. So I typically say to first-time home buyers, do you want to live in your car or do you want to live in a house? Make your decision thoughtfully when you're purchasing that car. Beacon score, credit score. So credit is something that it can be very confusing. Each credit bureau, so we have Equifax, we have FICO, and each of our bank institutions have their own internal credit ratings, can all be slightly different, and the algorithms in which they use to calculate your credit score can change. That being said, there's some general principles if you're looking to increase your credit score. Now, the minimum credit score that we're looking for is 680. 680 is the minimum on the A side. We can absolutely look at the B side if needed, but we're gonna talk A side today, which means all of our A lenders, when we need to go alternative lending because there's bruised credit, there may be some income challenges, we look at alternative lending. We're gonna talk about A lending today. Few things that we want to keep in mind to build your credit score. The higher the credit score, the better when the lender's looking at your application. So we want to pay bills on time. Set up auto payments. Don't forget that bill. I know sometimes, especially like our phone bills or the internet bills can slip through the cracks. Or if you've canceled something, make sure it's truly canceled. I can't tell you the number of times that I've seen on a credit bureau a bill past due, and they go, I canceled that. And when they call in, they go, well, we didn't receive the modem back. So you've been charged for a year and it's bruised your credit. Okay, so make sure when things are canceled, they're truly canceled, and pay those bills on time. Use a low percentage of available credit. So let's say you have a credit card that has $2,000 available limit, and every single month you're pulling it right up to $2,000 on that card. That's 100% utilization, and our credit bureaus do not like that, our credit scores. We want to try and aim for 60% or less, gold standard at 30% or less. So there is a balance between too much credit, of course, but we really want to make sure that we're on that 60% or less of credit utilization if we want to improve that credit score. Only apply for credit when you need it. Every single time you apply for credit, it is a hit to your credit bureau. For example, if I pull your credit, you will see about a 5 to 10% dip, 5 to 10% point dip. Now it is temporary, but our lenders are looking for what they call credit-seeking behavior, as is your credit score. So if you go out to CIBC and get a credit card, if you go to RBC and get a credit card, and then if you go to the dealership to see if you qualify for financing, all of these hits are hard hits, and they're going to start to bring your credit score down. So make sure we're only applying for credit when you truly need it. Give it time. So the longer your credit average of the history of that particular credit card, the better your score is going to be. We always say old credit is good credit. So if you've had a credit card that's kind of been kicking around, you don't really use it anymore, and you're like, maybe I should just cancel it. Don't. Keep it in your wallet, go to the gas station, put a little bit of, fill your tank up, go home, pay it off. Just keep using that old credit card once in a while. That's going to really help build your credit score. No negative public records, such as bankruptcies. Again, one of the most common things that I see is that when people get into trouble with their credit, they go to credit consolidation or they go bankruptcy. These are two of the biggest mistakes we can make depending on your circumstances. I've seen someone do a credit consolidation for $13,000. The problem with that is we've now set ourselves back significant timelines when we look to purchase a house. Bankruptcy, 7 years. Consumer proposal, 2 years after it's been paid off with reestablished debt. So if you have 2 years to pay off that consumer proposal, then we got to wait another 2 years. That's 4 years before we can get you into a house on the A side. Okay? And use it or lose it. If you have a dead credit card in your wallet and you're not using it, it's not building you credit. So like I said, even though it's annoying, set it up, go to the gas station, pay it, fill a tank on it, go home, pay it off. You're going to start building your credit. If you don't have any credit or you have thin credit, rule of twos is what you want to remember. So you want 2 trade lines, can be a credit card, student line, a student loan, line of credit, any 2, or 2 credit cards, 2 lines of credits, whatever they are. Minimum of $2,000 for a minimum of 2 years. That's going to help you build good, strong credit that the lenders look at, and now they have a history to see your creditworthiness. So, determining your max purchase price. That's what everybody wants to know. At the end of the day, they just want to know how much can they afford. And so there are 2 key ratios that I am looking at to determine what you can afford, and they are called our debt servicing ratios, and we have 2 of them. The first is our GDS, you'll hear it referred to, or gross debt service ratio. And that is the ability for you to pay your mortgage payment, your property taxes, your heat, and 50% of condo fees if they apply. If they don't, it's just 0, to the amount of income that you are bringing into your house. We want that percentage to be 39% or below. And this gets rounded to 3 decimal places when we're doing it for our lenders, so 39.000. Unfortunately, it's either you're on the bus or you're off the bus. If you're 39.1, you are not on the bus. You're not partially on the bus, you're not kind of on the bus, your arm is not on the bus, you are off the bus. And so we need it to be 39 or below. The next is our total debt service ratio. And so this one is the exact same calculation. It is our our mortgage payment, property taxes, heat, 50% of those condo fees if they apply, plus any of your debt obligations, those credit cards, your car payment, your student loan, your line of credit, added on a monthly basis. That percentage we want to be 44% or below. When we are talking insured purchases, so anything less than 20%, again, we have no play in these ratios. They have to be 39 or 44. If you already have a house or you are looking at putting more than 20% down, there is some few lenders, not a lot, there are a few lenders who will let us play with these ratios a little bit and go a little bit above. But for the majority of our lenders, 39, 44, no way around it. And so a couple ways that I will look at how can I increase your max purchase price, because again, that's my goal, get you in the house that you want to get into while making sure that you are financially stable. But a few things that I'll look at. So looking at increasing your down payment, can we save for a little bit longer to get you into the house that you'd like to, or at the purchase price that you need to be? Can we add a co-signer to the applicant? So do we have a mom and dad, an aunt and an uncle? Maybe it's daughter or son, depending on how old they are and if they have provable income, that we can add them onto your income or add them onto your application to help get you to the next level. Increase income. So a few things that we can look at that sometimes people don't think about, but if you have a side job that you are claiming income on your income taxes, we can look at adding that on. We can also look at the child tax credit that the government gives you. We can look at disability income. We can look at support payments from an ex. We can look at child support payments as well as alimony. So there's a couple of different ways that we can increase your income, or if you're hourly, can you add on additional hours? Can you add on an additional side job? So these are all things that we can have those discussions on to say, this is what you qualify for today, and how can we build that plan to get you where you want to be if today you are not ready to purchase. And then finally, reduce debt, of course. And so this is where kind of coming to me early really does pay off, because a lot of the time we have folks who are struggling with, I need to save for my down payment, but I also need to pay down my debt. Which one do I prioritize? And that gives us the ability to say, okay, let me show you, you have X amount saved for your down payment. This is what your debt currently is. Let's pay down your debt to X, then let's save for our down payment. And so we can come up with a strategy to get you there, instead of just trying to, I'm gonna save a little bit to pay down my, to increase my down payment, but then you also have some debt. It's a hard balance to strike. Okay, we're gonna shift gears a little bit here, and we're gonna talk about rate. And you'll notice if you work with me, rate is one of the last things I speak about. Everybody wants the lowest mortgage rate. Everybody talks about sometimes their mortgage rate, like on Facebook. They're like, what'd you get? What'd you get? They're all trying to like compete for who got like the best rate on their mortgage. And I always say, my goal is actually not to get you the lowest rate. I have access to lenders who will offer what I call bottom of the barrel lowest rates. The risks that are associated with those mortgages, many people out in the public actually don't have those low rates. You'll often see them on boards on the side of the road, or you'll hear them on radio ads. And I always say, if it sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true. And those bottom of the barrel rates, we call them no frills mortgages. And if anything goes wrong in your life, you can actually wreck your entire financial future by signing into one of those mortgages just for that low rate. And my goal as your mortgage broker is to save you money throughout the lifetime of your mortgage, not just on your singular mortgage term. I develop relationships with my clients over the long run, okay? Over your entire mortgage, not just one term. And so really important here to know that the mortgage rate, we like to say we date the rate, marry the house, right? We want to buy that house that we love. The rate is going to fluctuate every single term in which you sign out, 3 to 5 years, sometimes 1 to 2, usually 3 to 5 year term. And we have two huge buckets of rates. We have fixed rates and we have variable rates. And it is the age-old question, do you go fixed or variable? And people want to know, well, what is it best for me? And it is an extremely personal decision based on your finances, your risk tolerance, about what is going to make the most sense for you. Fixed rates and variable rates, right now, variable rates are a little bit higher. So it makes this conversation a little bit easier for first-time homebuyers who typically are entering into a new property that they've never had the ownership of or the expenses associated with a house, they may not have deep savings because they're spending a lot of those savings on the down payment. And so to enter into a variable rate product where we are going to see variability in your payment can be quite risky. And the last 2 to 3 years showed us that. We had people who entered into a variable rate at a rate of 1.9, and they are now paying a rate of 4.55, which is actually really good. At the peak, we were up at 6. And so we saw a lot of people losing their houses because they could not afford the increase in the interest rate. And that's a reality of variable. Fixed rates are safe. We know what that rate can be. You're going to pay that for the 3 to 5 year term that you're in. Variable rates typically save you money over the long term. This is the 5% of the time. They did a huge study over a 40-year period. Variable 1, 95% of the time. The 5% we are in right now, where variable rates are higher. And you need to be prepared for that 5% of the time, and if you can hold on. We also have a lot of people who are trying to, what I like to say, play the market. And it's like playing the stock market. You have to be extremely lucky in order to do that. There's not a lot of, or you've got to be very, very invested, where they say, well, I'll take the variable now because it's low. And it's predicted to come down a little bit with what our economy is doing. But if it starts to go the other way, I'm just going to lock into a fix, because the benefit of variable is you can lock into a fix at any time, no fee, no nothing. But you're locking into a fix at the fixed rate as of today in a rate that is comparable to the rate you're in now. And a lot of people who they go to lock in, that variable rate or that fixed rate will actually be higher than your variable is right now. And so it's a really hard decision to make to flip over to that fixed side. So the moral here, like the long story short, is that if you have the financial backing or the safety net to go variable for if rates increase, go for it. Have fun with it. If you're okay making that higher payment for a short period of time, go for it. Have fun. You'll probably save money over the long term. Variable is a long-term game. You're going to do it for the rest of your mortgage. Go for it. You'll save money. If you do not want to stay up at night worrying about your mortgage, if you do not want to listen to what the Bank of Canada announcement's doing every month and a half to 2 months, if your payment going up means that you can't afford your mortgage, fixed rate's the way to go. Yes, you may pay a little bit more, but you won't risk losing your house over the increase in the interest rate. And then the next question, well, 25 years or 30 years? So government introduced that new 30-year amortization, and the conversation that we have a lot of the time is, well, should I do a 25-year amortization or should I do the 30 years? Your 30 years is going to offer you a lower monthly payment. However, you're also going to pay 5 years of additional interest on your mortgage. I always say it's great to have a safety net. We can always leverage your prepayment options with your lender to pay down your mortgage quicker, but we cannot go from 25 years to 30 years. So if you lock into a 25-year mortgage and you're going to pay monthly payment of $2,704, and something happens in your life where you lose your job, or you have to take on a little bit more debt because there was a reno to the house, or you need to bring mom and dad into the house because they're not doing well, their health's failing, and you've got to do a couple retrofits to the house. Life happens. You can't change that $2,700 without refinancing your mortgage. But if you take the 30-year amortization and now you're paying $2,460, so a little bit less, what we can do is we can utilize your prepayment options. We can increase your monthly payment to the $2,700, pay off your mortgages if it was a 25-year amortization, and then if something happens, we can take you back down to that lower payment of $2,464 to give you relief if needed. So sometimes I say it's not bad to take the 30-year. We'll mock up the 25-year payment if you can hold it, if it makes sense, especially if you're a first-time home buyer, get comfortable with all the expenses, and then if you have a little bit more money, we can pay down that mortgage quicker if we want. But we cannot go the opposite way. We also have new to Canada programs. And I love highlighting this because a lot of the time we need provable income in Canada for a minimum of 2 years. We need credit history in Canada for a minimum of 2 years. But at the end of the day, we also have a lot of immigrants that come to Canada. And there are lenders who design programs especially for new to Canada individuals. And so a few things to consider: that if you are new to Canada and you have immigrated or relocated to Canada within the last 5 years, there are special programs for you. A couple things that you need to be aware of is that you do need a valid work permit or have obtained your PR. You need to be employed within Canada, or you need to be claiming your income in Canada. So if you're employed elsewhere, we will see a lot of the times that you aren't claiming your income in Canada because then you're paying double taxes. But from a lender perspective, that Canadian income or that income does have to be registered in Canada and be claimed on your Canadian taxes. And then your down payment is easiest from a Canadian institution. And so if you are thinking of buying a house, it's easiest to get your down payment transferred into your Canadian account as soon as possible. We can run into some issues if it's in a foreign held institution. There are actually a couple that are, I don't want to say blacklisted, but they are blacklisted by our lenders. They use a nicer term, of course, but they actually will not accept funds from certain areas of the world. And if we have the down payment in the Canadian account for a minimum of 3 months, we bypass a ton of paperwork. So it just makes your life easier. The lender will want to see 3 months history. And so my goal is always just get that down payment in your account as soon as possible, run 3 months. Now we provide the history and they don't see where that money comes from. So it makes your life easier, it makes my life easier, and we don't have to worry about any of the red tape. In the absence of sufficient credit report, because you may not have any Canadian credit established yet, couple ways that we can get around that. We can look at an international credit bureau. A lot of times we have to pay for it, but it's a small price to pay in order to get you into a house. Demonstrate payments consistency via 12 months bank statements or 12 months billing systems. So can you show you've made consistent rent payments, consistent utility payments, cable, phone, auto insurance, childcare? There's lots of ways in which we can prove it. We just need to show that for 12 months you've been responsible and made consistent, met your liabilities consistently. Or we can use a letter of reference from a recognized financial institution endorsing your banking experience and relationship. So, few takeaways, 2 main takeaways. That's a lot of information to distill into such a short period of time. First, like we talked about at the beginning, first home doesn't need to be your forever home. A lot of times we just want to get you into the market. The appreciation on that asset can be a huge benefit, and we can see a lot of equity being built. We just want to get you into that market so you can start building that equity. And 2, I'm here to help guide you through the entire process and educate you. I do not expect people to remember any of this information. Even when you're going through the mortgage process, I don't expect you to remember this information. I am here to let you know the entire process. This is how we start. These are the documents I need from you. This is the next step. This is what I need from you. I will walk you through every step and let you know when something is due, what you need to do next in order to kind of get pre-approved and then get that house. So don't feel like you have to remember everything. But if you did remember something, one of these 2 things. And finally, let's chat. I am here to answer any of your questions. Feel free to WhatsApp me, text me, email me, DM me on Instagram. That's my little Instagram square. But I'm always here to answer questions. It can be a one-off question if you just want to know what the down payment minimums are, or it can be, listen, can we have a more in-depth conversation? I'd love to know where I stand. Don't ever hesitate to reach out. And again, I do want to thank you guys for having me today. I always really appreciate the time to educate people.
Thank you so much, Megan. Thank you so much. Do we have questions? She's right here now. And if we have questions, we can just ask. I know some of us have questions. Or you don't have questions at all? Sorry, what do you mean by handout? Oh, from the present. No, we didn't present. We didn't prepare for that. Yeah. So, question? Okay.
Thank Miss. You are welcome. I was not here when the presentation started, but I have a question I would like to ask. From the presentation, you mentioned ages of payment. The lowest was 25 years, right? But yeah.
So for amortization, we have flexibility to go from 1 year all the way up to 30 years for first-time homebuyer. Standard to qualify at the first time, yes, 25 years or 30 is typically standard.
So I'm considering if you are 60 years and you are getting a mortgage of 30 years.
Yeah.
So how you going to meet up with the payment? So at the time you are 60, you already pensioned. So where would the payment be coming from? Then that is another question. Then the other one, like it can't be done like the way we do purchase car, that you have to put like 0 down payments to purchase a house. Is there any program like that?
Yeah, okay, so great question. So first, let's talk amortization. So let's say you are 60 years or 70 years or 80 years, however old you are, and you're purchasing a house. If it is your first house, we don't necessarily need to have your house paid off by the time you leave us in this world, okay? That house would then be sold upon your death to pay off any remaining mortgage. So let's say you bought a $600,000 house and your mortgage is $500,000, you have $100,000 in equity, you only make a year of payment. So let's just call it, you die right away, okay? So you purchase the house at your house is worth $600,000, you have a $500,000 mortgage, you die, then your house is gonna be sold for $600,000. You're gonna pay off the $500,000 mortgage. There's gonna be legal fees and fees on top of that, but roughly your estate will walk away with $100,000. So we don't necessarily have to worry about amortization. We can also use retirement income, so we can use pension, old age security, CPP, in order to help you qualify, as well as if you convert your RRSP or RSP over to what's called a RIF, so you're pulling income out of it in retirement. Those things can all be used to help qualify you at retirement. If your goal is to be mortgage free and you are older, we absolutely can take your amortization down. So if you do not want 25 years, we could do a 10-year amortization. So if you're 60 and you say, I want to be mortgage free by the time I'm 70, we can absolutely do a 10-year amortization for you.
So about the down payments, can you talk about it a little?
Yeah. So down payment, there are a few government programs, actually 2, that will allow you to have a loaned down payment. One of them just was discontinued. I do not recommend a loan down payment where you have to put 0 skin in the game. Typically, you need at least your closing costs. The math doesn't work. They will loan you the down payment, and then they get the equity in your house. And so you end up walking away with barely anything when you sell that house. And we've done a lot of models to show this, where we say, okay, let's say they give you 30% of the down payment. Well, they still own 50% of that house. And so when you go to sell it in 5, 10 years, they now get 50% of whatever equity's been built in that house. And they get back a heck of a lot more than what they put in. It doesn't make sense. It's not fair to the person who's going into it. And a lot of the times we see the people that are doing that who just really want to get into the housing market, and they don't necessarily make the best financial decision to do that. And so I counsel a lot of clients to come up with a down payment. You need a minimum of 5%, whether it's your own money loaned or gifted. You need 5% wherever it comes from. There is no option to do 0% financing like there is at the dealerships. You have to have skin in the game. The lender needs to see that you are responsible for that money somehow.
Like the screen it showed the mortgage wage insurance. Can you throw light on it to me?
Yeah, the mortgage default insurance?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So mortgage default insurance is insurance that the lender gets to protect themselves if you default. So if you stop paying your mortgage payment, then the insurer, there's only 3 in Canada, the insurer will then make the lender whole. So whatever's short after they foreclose on your house, they sell it, and let's say that you're still short funds because you've defaulted on your mortgage and maybe that house hasn't gone up in a lot of value, then the insurer will keep them whole. The caveat there is that although it's mortgage insurance to the benefit of the lender, you as the borrower have to pay it, and it gets added onto your mortgage. And so it's your purchase price, so let's call it $500,000, less your down payment, and if it's a minimum down payment, that's $25,000, plus your mortgage insurance. And then that becomes a one-time payment that you pay at the onset, like when you get that mortgage and purchase that house, and that gets wrapped up into your mortgage payment that's calculated.
So as a first buyer, so when you have already co-signed with a partner to purchase the house, so you still qualify for the first buyer, or you not
If you've
qualify?
co-signed before,
Yes.
if you've co-signed on a property, no, because technically you've purchased that property. Now, there's a couple caveats to that. If that property has been sold, if you've never lived in it in a primary capacity, there's a couple of different government incentives that we talked about for first-time home buyers, and there's actually a couple of different qualifications for each of those incentives. So some of those incentives even kickstart as a first-time home buyer if you've been separated. So if you've been separated but you just were living in your matrimonial house, then you get separated, you do qualify as a first-time home buyer then to re-extend your amortization to 30 years. First-time, then we have our grant or your refund on your land transfer taxes. There's a couple that are nuanced that you do or do not qualify for as a first-time home buyer, depending on if you've lived in the property or not.
Okay, thank you for the answers.
Good questions.
So let's say you're taking it out of your retirement plan. Can you take out the down payment out of your retirement plan, and when you do you get taxed, and how much can you actually take out of it?
Good questions. So if you're taking it out of your RRSP, your max is $35,000. No, you are not taxed on it. It comes out tax-free. You then are required to pay it back over 15 years. So they'll take the amount divided by 15, and you're required to pay that back. Paying it back is a little bit nuanced, and definitely work with a financial planner to determine what's best for you. But in some instances, it actually works better just to add it on to your income instead of physically paying it back. So let's say you owe $2,000 at the end of the year to pay back your home buyer's plan. Sometimes what you can do that will make the most sense is just tack that onto your income. And then that will also, that's how they'll pay it off, and you don't actually have to give $2,000 cash.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Now, maybe I want to buy a house for my children, and I have the documentation based on my bracket, salary bracket. I have all the documentation they don't have, so how am I going to go about it?
For your children?
Yeah.
So you can absolutely purchase a house for your children. If it is going to be your first house that you're buying, you qualify for a lot of the first-time home buyer incentives. If this is going to be a second property, so you already have your own house and we're going to purchase it for your children, if you purchase a second property, your minimum down payments automatically change to 20% if it's an investment property. And so typically what we'll do is we will do some math to say, does it make the most sense to purchase this as a second home, like a cottage, or do we want to purchase this as an investment property? Usually the math will make the most sense to do it as a second home for you, because we can still do minimum down payment requirements versus that investment property which require 20%. And then your children can either go on the property or not. So let's say they don't have an income yet, they're still going through school. We don't have to put them on title. Absolutely not. It can be a gift later, and you can also gift them the equity later as well. Or if they do have income, we can absolutely add them on to the property. We can use their income to help them qualify as well, and you can either be a co-signer, or you can purchase 50-50, or you can purchase it for them.
Okay, so like I want to buy a house now. So what do you advise me to go to housing, or I should go to condo? Like you were talking about condo, that I can buy condo and put it, maybe rent it out. Yeah, so because people are saying, no, if you buy condo, it's like when you're selling is going to be difficult. And so which one do you advise? Is it house or condo?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's, again, really dependent on your personal circumstances. So if it's a first house, you don't have any other property, a condo is a great investment. Right now, our condo market in Kingsley, you can probably talk about this much better than I can. Kingsley's going to be the better source here on what's actually going on in the market. But we see the condo market's pretty soft right now, right?
Okay,
And so
very
there's
soft.
lots of deals to be had. We want to be very cognizant about the types of condos that we're purchasing and the condo fees that are associated with them and how they're being managed. We see a lot of mismanagement.
Okay, like now, I want to, like I have 3 kids, I want to buy 3 of them houses
Yes.
at once.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I have a
Maybe I
a
have
client.
3 condos differently that I
Yeah,
want to
and
buy.
would they live in the condos now, or are they
They might not necessarily live in the condo, maybe just buy it for them
for
as
the
an
investment down payment?
Yeah.
So we're going to be purchasing that as an investment property. And so a condo is great because from a qualifying standpoint, the purchase price of the condo is typically lower than a freehold. And it gets a little bit more technical and nuanced, but the way that I can qualify a condo, I can back out your condo fees and back out those maintenance fees and not use them. And then the purchase price is lower. So I can buy you more condos than if you were to buy a freehold at a higher purchase price. So if you're looking to build your wealth quicker, condos is going to be able to do that for you. I can get you more condos quicker than I can a freehold at the higher purchase price.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. And then we also want to do the math as well. And what we do when we're doing investment planning to build wealth is we're looking at, can we sustain the mortgage payment? And what is our break even to make sure that our mortgage payment and our property taxes and our condo fees can all be paid by the rentor? Because we want you to be operating at as close to net neutral as we can get you. We don't necessarily want you to take a loss on that condo each month, because from a cash flow perspective, that can be pretty hard to sustain. If you can sustain it, great, because operating at a net loss is actually really advantageous when it comes to income tax time, because it helps write down your income. But a lot of people can't operate at a net loss. They don't have the extra cash to say, okay, I can put an extra $500 into this investment each month.
So I have a question. So what are the conditions if you purchase a house and you're not working and it's going to a foreclosure, and the bank put into foreclosure, what would you be penalized by? Can you fight for it to get back the house?
Yeah, so the foreclosure rules, there's different milestones at each step. And so when you're served with foreclosure papers, you have a certain amount of time, I believe it's 2 weeks, if memory serves me correct, where you can make back the payments. Once it kicks over to actually the sale time, then we start to lose time. And each lender's slightly different in what their processes are. If we catch it early enough, yes, we can pay it back, plus any of the interest and fees that have been occurred because of that foreclosure. So typically, because you've been missing payments, we then see if you've owed $1,000, you then owe interest on that $1,000, and then if you've missed the next $1,000, you also owe fees on that as well, or interest on that. So we have to pay back your mortgage in full and get it in good standing in order to get that property back, but we can only do it within a certain number of days. We have basically the clock is ticking as soon as you're served.
So what if you say you came upon some finance so you can pay it back? The bank will give it back to you or no?
Sorry, say that again?
What if you get money to pay it back? The bank will give back the house to you?
Yes, as long as you're within the time frame that's
Okay.
allowed. Yeah, then
Okay,
you
that's
can
what
get
I-
it back in good standing and keep your property.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
One more question. Based on what my sister said, she says she's looking to buy 3 houses for the children. So I have a couple of friends that do called me for co-signing that one person can purchase a house. So how is she going to co-sign for 3 persons to purchase 3 houses at the same time?
So why is she doing that?
How is she going to co-sign for 3 persons to purchase 3 houses?
So if she has the income to support it, she can, but you have to qualify in order to co-sign. So when you co-sign, we are putting you on the mortgage as if you were qualifying for that property. So we use your income, we use your debt, and we add it to whoever the primary applicant is. You can't just co-sign. We have to use all your liabilities. So if you have 2 other properties, we have to use the mortgage payment, the property taxes, the heat, condo fees from that other property to help you qualify. If it's an investment property, we can also use the investment income from that property. So let's say you have a condo and you're renting it out for $1,000. Our rules about qualifying that liability change. And so we now are able to use the investment income that it's creating in order to help you qualify for your next one. She can't just co-sign if we can't qualify her with her existing liabilities. So let's say, for example, you buy 1 condo and now you want to go buy the next condo. If your income can't support both condos, we can't do it. But if your income does, we absolutely can do it. And then we can say, well, now we have 2 investment condos, they're generating income. Now can we qualify for the 3rd? Yes, we can, or no, we can't, then we can't do it.
Another way, if the econ is big, she can purchase 3 houses. But I have a friend that has a good job and has a big income coming in, but they still need 2 persons to co-sign before they can allow him to purchase the house.
We never know what someone's debt situation is. So just because they have a good income, we don't know what that mortgage payment is or how large it is, or how small it is the other side too. Like some people will say to me, well, how can they afford 4 houses? Well, it's like, well, 2 of those are mortgage free, so they don't count when we're qualified. But we don't know what their debt circumstances is either. So like, do they have a lot of consumer debt? Do they have a lot of credit card debt? Are they line of credit? Have they co-signed for a lot of people? So we don't know what's going on in the background where they need another co-signer in order to help them qualify. Even though people have a good income, doesn't necessarily mean that they can afford what we would think that they can afford, because we don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Until you run a credit score, so you cannot tell if it's qualified or not.
Yeah, exactly. And
Okay.
the credit score itself.
In another way, you can purchase as many houses as long as you have a good credit score, right?
And your income can support it.
Okay.
As long as you can qualify, you can purchase 10 properties. We have a lot of investors who have 10 properties. We have to get creative when we get that high. Over 4 doors, we typically then have to go to alternative lenders. A lenders are like, yeah, no, I'm out. More than 4 doors, I won't do. But yeah, as long as the income can support it, and when you start building wealth through real estate, we start having investment properties, and you start being able to do really cool things with those investment properties to help you qualify for the next investment property. So what we typically will see is you buy your first house, you buy a condo. okay? And I'm gonna put 5% down on that condo, 25,000, it's a $500,000 condo. In 5 years, not right now because condos are not going up, but let's say you buy in this market, in 5 years' time, that condo has gone up to $700,000. You now have built $200,000 in equity, plus what you've paid down your mortgage, okay? So now you have all this equity that you're sitting on. And now you're going, okay, I'm ready to take the next step. I wanna purchase that house that I'm gonna build my family in, okay? Or you're gonna get married or whatever, but you wanna upsize. We then take that equity that you're sitting on in that condo and we do what's called a refinance. And we pull the $200,000 out of that condo and we take that $200,000 that now becomes your down payment. So instead of just having $25,000 that you started with, you now have $200,000 out and you purchase your $1 million property because 20% on $1 million is $200,000. Now you bought $1 million house. So you in 5 years just went from a $500,000 purchase because that was the max down payment that you could have. It appreciates in value. We now can refinance. You keep that condo. You go into your nice $1 million house, and that condo we flip over to an investment property. Now the condo mortgage becomes higher because you've just put more, you've taken that money out, and so now your loan is larger on that property. But that's how we typically build wealth, is we refinance that property that has built the equity, take the equity out, and use that to purchase something new. And so it's a much, I say this with a big caveat, it's a much quicker way to build wealth than investing, because if you took that same $25,000 and you put it in the stock market, it definitely would not grow as quickly as the housing market does. With the caveat is, we do see moments in the market where we have seen depressions, right? And so 2021 was this really high purchase price, 2022, and now we've seen values fall a little bit. So now you've got to wait for them to come back up. But history tells us that the housing market will rebound. And when it does, that's when we see those big jumps in equity. Does that make
Last
sense?
question. So why is closing always a problem at the end of the transaction? So why can't the agent take the money from the bank than asking the individual to pay in person?
Sorry, say that again.
She's insisting.
I'm asking for the closing.
Yeah, at the closing.
Yeah, why can't the agent go to the bank and take the money from the closing than asking individual to pay the money?
Because it has to come from
It
your
can't be
account.
wiped out?
Can't be wiped out?
Yes.
No, it has to come, so it has to come from your account. You have to go to the bank physically to get the certified check for your down payment amount. Take that to the lawyer. The lawyer is then the in-between person between you and the lender. So they act in the lender's behalf to say, yep, I got the down payment, here you go. Lender says, thank you, here's your cash.
Leah, let me put the question this way. I think she's trying to say, why is it that in closing, like, they can't make it a combo with the mortgage? Like,
the closing costs.
Yeah, the closing costs.
Oh, yeah. So the reason why they can't is because a few things. So the closing costs are due on closing in cash. If you do it as a mortgage, it's a loan, right, that you then have to repay. And so one, the lender wants to know you have skin in the game. So you have the financial discipline to save. The people who you are paying right away, like the lawyer, doesn't want it to be a loan. They want it to be the cash. And so the lender is only lending on the value of the property. There are certain circumstances where we actually can't. The reason why this is a complicated question to answer is because there are certain circumstances in which we can use the mortgage funds for the closing costs. So when you refinance, we almost all of the time will pull out enough money to cover the lawyer fees and legal fees. But the challenge with first-time home buyers is that the mortgage lender will only lend on the value of the property, and the down payment has to be a minimum amount. So let's say, for example, that $500,000 property that you want to purchase, you need to put $25,000 down in order to purchase the property. Their closing costs are an additional 1.5%. I don't have a calculator on me. How much is that? This is an extra $7,500, okay? The lender is not going to say, here's an extra $7,500 because you've only given me $25,000 and I've agreed to pay you $475,000. If you want an additional $7,500, you have to give me more of a down payment. I need a minimum of $5,000. Does that make sense? They will only lend on the value of the property. So they're telling you that they'll give you $475,000 for a $25,000 down payment. If you want more money, you got to give them more money. They will only do that percentage. So if you want to include the closing costs, you want them to lend you an additional $7,500 is what you're saying. But they won't because they need a minimum of $5,000 or $25,000.
No.
Right. Nope.
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 At hand.
You have to show proof that you have the $25,000 plus the closing costs. Because the bank says, listen, I will give you $475,000 in exchange for your $25,000 down payment. And the value of the house is $500,000. That's the ratio that they've agreed to. $475,000 to $25,000 down payment. You're telling them, well, I want an additional $7,500 to close. Well, no, they need the down payment, the minimum down payment of $25,000. So now you're asking for more money. And they're saying, no, that's not our deal. I need a minimum of 5% down. So now if you want an extra $7,500, you have to give more down payment in order for them to do that. But they won't on the first house do the closing costs. Pardon me? So I can help walk them through, this is what you can afford now. This is how much you need to save, but I can't help you save for that down payment. I can help show you the ways in which saving will work the best in your benefit. So here are the programs in which you should utilize. Here are the costs that are associated with purchasing the house. So this is how much you have to save, but I can't help you save for that down payment. That has to come from blood, sweat, and tears, the old-fashioned way. Oh, yeah. No. They're good questions because this is what a lot of people want to know, because saving for a down payment in today's world is hard. It's really difficult. $25,000 for a $500,000 home, and in the GTA, $500,000 is not going to get you a lot. It's really difficult. And so this is why we say coming to us early allows us to help you save in the most effective ways, but at the end of the day, you still do have to save. It's really hard to break into the housing market as a first-time home buyer. It's not easy.
Any other question?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Megan, I just want to shed light on why or how refinancing or renewal affects amortization. Because it does make it varies.
Can you say that one more time?
How renewals or refinancing affects or impacts amortization.
How does it affect amortization? Really good question. Okay, so when we talk, let's talk renewals first. So you already have a house, you've taken out a 30-year amortization loan, and you've taken out a 5-year term, because that's typically what we're seeing from 5 years ago. They're all coming up for renewal now. So if you have a house, you're probably renewing this year or next year. It's been 5 years, and so you're up for renewal. And so what will happen is you took out a 30-year amortization, and you took out a 5-year term. And so 30 years less 5-year term means you're around 25-year amortization. Now I say around 25-year amortization because there's a couple things that can affect that amortization. You might have made additional payments on your mortgage because you added some additional cash. So you put some additional payments on your mortgage. That will bring down your amortization. The other thing that helps bring down your amortization is the frequency in which you make your mortgage payments. So if you're making your mortgage payments on an accelerated bi-weekly payment, which means every 2 weeks you're making a payment and it's on the accelerated track, then your amortization will also come down. So now it's time for renewal. At renewal, if you're doing a straight renewal with your current lender, you're literally renewing the exact same mortgage. So whatever your remaining amortization is around that 25-year mark, we're taking that and we're renewing that into a new term, whether it's a 1, 2, 3, 5-year term, into a new term. We also have the option to take that exact same mortgage as it stands today and move it to a new lender. The advantage of that is that we get to shop the rate and shop the product. And so depending on what you tell me in that renewal call, I may say, you know what, we actually have this lender who is going to allow us to achieve the goal. Maybe you're looking at doing a renovation down the line. Maybe you're looking, so we want to add on a home equity line of credit. Or you're looking at your kids are going off to university, so you need a little more cash in your pocket. We want access to that home equity line of credit. We might want to move to a better product. Or what we see most often is that when you're with your existing lender to renew, all you have to do is either click through their portal or they send you documents and you sign on the dotted line. Super easy. And the lender's going, I bet you they're not going to shop around and they'll take the time to re-qualify for a new loan. So I'm not going to give them the best rate. And so the advantage of taking it to a new lender is we get a little bit better of a competitive rate. The thing there is that we need to go through the whole mortgage renewal process again. So I need all your documents and we got to sign all the paperwork. A little bit more work on your end, but a lot of the times worth it because we can get a better rate. Okay, so when that amortization comes up at renewal, we're literally taking whatever that remaining amortization is, moving it to a new lender or staying with the existing one. You're taking out a new term, you keep paying down that amortization with every term of the mortgage. When we come up for refinance, so let's say you've got a little bit of debt and we want to pull out some of that equity in the house and we want to pay it off. Or you have a renovation coming up that you want to use the equity in your house to pay for. Or we want to purchase that investment property. So we're going to pull out the equity from the house for your down payment. Your refinance options are different. And so let's take that exact same scenario where we've taken your 30-year mortgage out. We've served 5 years. We're now around 25-year amortization, and we're going to refinance. When we refinance, we have the ability to take your amortization back up to 30 years. The benefit of that is that we reduce your monthly payment. So especially in circumstances where we are looking at investment properties, so building your wealth through real estate, we want to get your payments down as low as possible. Or if we're looking at debt consolidation, and so we're really trying to, from a cash flow perspective, relieve it. Or what we're seeing a lot of today is the mortgages that are coming up for renewal today were taken out 5 years ago when our interest rates were 2%. We're now coming up for renewal, and yes, although your mortgage payment you've paid down for 5 years, but your mortgage rate is now 4.34. And so that mortgage rate doubling, you may not be able to sustain from a cash flow perspective, so pulling that amortization back to 30 years may give you some kind of cash flow relief and make those monthly payments feel a little bit better. So that's how we can also refinance, take more money out and keep your amortization as is. When we refinance, we can do whatever we want with amortization. We can pull it down, we can pull it up, max 30 years. And this is all on the A side. If we go to the B side, we have some different amortization rules. But
I have a question for someone. Is it possible or say advisable to buy a home in cash, say 500,000 or 1 million?
Really good question. And I would typically divert that to a financial planner. there's a lot of things that we need to consider in those cases. So one is, what is the opportunity cost of a $500,000 or $1 million in cash purchase? That $500,000 or $1 million, typically, if you are investing it, depending on the type of investment, is going to make more than a 4.34 interest rate. And so it's going to do more for you in your investment income. That being said, a primary residence is tax exempt. And so there is a lot to be said for that. And so sometimes when we work with financial planners, where someone has a lot of wealth for whatever reason, but they have significant wealth, and they don't have a primary residence yet, we will actually be quite creative in the amount that we put down. And we may put down more than 20% because we are trying to tax shelter some of their money. I never make those decisions for people in silo. I always lean on their financial planner, and if they don't have a financial planner, I will hook them up with one, because the financial planner is the one who is the expert in managing their wealth to work the best for them. My goal is to manage your real estate investments to work the best for you, and I typically worked in tandem with accountants, financial planners, lawyers. We kind of develop a team for you that are going to all be able to serve you in different ways, but come together to kind of get you to where you want to be. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. There are definitely circumstances where someone may buy cash. Yeah, and we see it. If she's buying straight cash, it depends if they're going through
Real estate.
thank you, a realtor or not. So if they're going through a realtor, then they would still have to owe the realtor fees. But if they're not, and they're typically, you would want a lawyer involved in some capacity because you want independent legal advice. So probably have some legal fees would be advisable. But if they were just doing like a private sale, like, there's not necessarily any, and you also need to change title as well. So there would be some legal fees. It just depends on the amount. So for example, if my parents wanted to gift me down their property, and it was going to put my name on title, we would still have to pay a fee to get my name on title, even though we're not going through any realtors or anything. There would still be some fees associated with it, but there would, well, it's still got to transfer, land transfer, and all of that fun stuff.
Thank you so much. Any other question? Was that not interesting? I think we feel like buying a house now. We've known the secret.
I'll stick around too, so when you're done, if there's any other questions,
yes,
feel free to come and chat.
So I'm not going to take much time anymore, because I know if I decide to use my PowerPoint, it will be too long. But now, to some of you that don't know me, my name is Kingsley. I'm a realtor. I sell, I buy, and I help you to invest. I mean, like, you have houses, I can buy for you. If you want to sell, I can sell for you. But before I became a realtor, I wore so many hats. I've been in so many fields. I've done so many things. Like, as an immigrant in this country, I have worked in all aspects. So my passion, the drive towards the real estate, what bore out real estate in me, was when I became a building maintenance. So I have done plumbing in case you need me for that. But now I'm no longer doing that. But if you decide you need me, it's going to be more expensive. So I've done all that. So that was how my interest in real estate came up. So now we all know what it is now. So what is my job for you? I help you, I guide you, in that process. Now you've heard from the mortgage broker how you can get that mortgage, how you can get that money that you need to get that, dream home, that dream house you want to buy. So now, what do you do with the money? It's not going to sit in the bank, say, oh, bank has approved the mortgage. I don't think I'll buy now. I'm going to sit there and wait and just let the money grow. No, it doesn't work that way. Now you need my services. Now I'm going to guide you, walk you through. So where does that advice come from? I want to know, I want to narrow down that part, what you really need. What is the kind of job you do? probably what is your family size, what are the things that will impact or, that will narrow down to the house, the kind of house you want to buy. So that is where my job comes in. I wouldn't see you as a 60-year, like my sister said, 60-year-old woman, then I'll tell you to go buy triplets, a high story. Who is going to climb it? So I would need to advise you, like you need to take into a low, like a bungalow and things like that. So I will not tell you because, you're a busy person, go buy in the heart of downtown, or you want an investment property. I'm advising you to, some people, I went last 2 weeks, I was, showing a house, and I found this house. The house is a bungalow. Everything was so good. There's a huge backyard. But from the house, you can't go to the backyard. You have to come outside and go around. So what do you think that kind of property is? So it's funny. So as a realtor, I wouldn't advise. This is where my expertise come in, where I will not advise you to go into that kind of thing. So just in case you want to walk on that path, narrow path, you've gotten your mortgage, then I will walk you, I will guide you through. I'm here, like she said, I'm not going to ask you for the money, pay me before I follow you, no. I'm going to do the work, you are not the one paying me. It's going to come out from the bank. Don't feel like, oh my God, I have this money. This realtor is too expensive. No, we don't give you price to say I'm too expensive or I'm too cheap. No, but the kind of services that I give is what you will appreciate. So that is it. So I really thank you for coming. I believe we've learned something today. I know, we are in the house of God. I know God has put it in our heart. We'll begin to walk towards it. If we need like a mortgage person, reach out to me. I can help you to reach out to Megan. She can guide. She's not that kind of person like give me before I talk to you. No. She can, even if you are not ready and you want to ask her questions, like I introduced someone to her that the person came back to me and said, oh, she gave me everything, and he told me that in 2 years I can buy a house. So I'm walking back to go save, and in 2 years I'm coming back to meet her that I can buy a house. So that is an advice, man. We don't get it like that, in this country. So let's put, that faith. Let's, bundle with that faith that we've heard this knowledge, they say is power. Let's use the power and rise up. Thank you so much for coming today. If you have questions, she's still around. But meanwhile, we have some busy things to get on. Yes, sir. So I think we'll invite Apostle to do the closing prayer and before we do any other thing.
Praise God. Amen. I'm happy. It's a wonderful teaching. Thank you so much. I was so amazed. That was a wonderful. Thank you. Amen. Shall we pray? Let's pray as we close this teaching for today. Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you. We give you praise. We magnify your name. We exalt you, Father. Thank you for the gift of wisdom, the gift of knowledge. Thank you for the information we've received today. Give us the ability to put them to work in the name of Jesus. Thank you, Heavenly Father. For in Jesus' name we have prayed. Amen. God bless you. Please stay back a bit for the refreshment.